Hi students, welcome to lesson 18 Tribal Communities in India, Part B. India is a diversified country and different groups occupy various parts of India having their own cultural characteristics and levels of development. A number of groups are still in primitive stage and they are very often referred to as tribals, primitives and Adivasis and so on. The scheduled tribe population according to 2011 census constitutes 8.2% of the Indian population. This is almost equal to the population of Britain. At present, India has the second largest tribal population in the world, next only to Africa. Tribals in India are spread over the length and breadth of the country. After completion of this lesson, you will be able to understand, you will be able to explain the problems of tribal communities in India. You will be able to describe the various tribal development and welfare measures. Meaning of tribes. In the Indian context, tribes are normally referred as scheduled tribes. The scheduled tribes constitute the second largest group of the backward classes. Tribals are very commonly called as Adivasis. Riley, Verrier, Elvin and others use the word aboriginals to mean tribals. Dr. G.S. Ghurye, a renowned sociologist, called tribals as backward Hindus. International Labour Organization, that is ILO, used the expression indigenous people to refer to the tribals. Gandhi popularized the word Girijan for tribals. Tribes are also known as Vanvasis, Aranyavasis and Vanyajatis, etc. The Constitution of India accepted to use the term scheduled tribes, which was introduced for the first time by Simon Commission in 1928. Article 366, clause 25 of the Constitution says that scheduled tribes are the tribes or tribal communities or parts of or groups within such tribes or tribal communities which the Indian President may specify by public notification under Article 342, clause 1. D. N. Majumdar defines tribe as a collection of families bearing a common name, members of which occupy the same territory, speak the same language and observe certain taboos regarding marriage, profession or occupation and have a well-developed, well-assessed system of reciprocity and mutuality of obligations. Exploitation of tribes. Tribes have suffered serious exploitation due to indifference from administrators and bureaucracy in dealing with tribal grievances. The harsh and unfriendly forest laws and regulations, lack of legislations to prevent the passing of tribal land into the hands of non-tribals and lack of credit facilities have impacted tribal development. Further, the ineffective government measures to rehabilitate tribal population, delay in implementation of recommendations of different committees, discrimination in implementation of reform measures have also led to exploitation of tribes. Tribal women are also sexually assaulted and exploited. Tribal communities also are faced with the problem of eviction and have lost their identity. There are reckless tourist activities in tribal areas leading to culture shock, exploitation, objectification, humiliation, undermining one's culture and an increase in inter-tribe conflicts. The question thus still remains, what can be done to make tribal tourism ethical and protect the indigenous tribes from exploitation? Land alienation. It was defined by Hegel and was used by Marx. Land alienation is also a serious tribal problem. It is a specific problem of the tribals where land becomes the primordial source of exploitation. It results in the creation of a society where exploitative production relations exist. The forms of alienation are manipulation of land records, benami transfers, leasing or mortgaging of the land, encroachment, lack of proper land records, bribing the local patwari for manipulating the date of settlement of land disputes, and concubinage or marital alliance is another form to circumvent the law and grab tribal lands at no cost at all. Fictitious adoption of the non-tribals by the tribal families is also another method to snatch the lands of the tribals. Slackness in the implementation of the restrictive provisions encourages the non-tribals to occupy the tribal lands. Let us also talk about the issues of health and sanitation. Illiteracy, lack of awareness and ignorance has created hindrances in the tribals taking care of their health and sanitation. Their traditional means of diagnosis and cure is not sufficient to tackle health problems like brain fever, skin diseases, tuberculosis, malaria, etc. They also suffer from diabetes, blood pressure problems. Problem of separatism. Shankar Rao says that the divide and rule policy adopted by the British has done lot of damage to the tribal areas. The relations between tribals and non-tribals are also under stress. In many states, tribals have taken up the problems of revolt and insurgency. There are various approaches to solve tribal problems which has been discussed in the literature. The viewpoints include policy of isolation, policy of assimilation, and policy of integration. Let us now discuss about various tribal development and welfare measures. The concept of tribal welfare can be traced back to Mauryan Empire. There is special attention by the crown prince, and there was a separate minister in the cabinet known as Antamahamatya. There are number of epigraphical and literary evidences including the rock edicts of Ashoka the Great. The colonial government dealt with tribal development keeping their own vested interests. The British mode of tribal administration was to keep the tribals isolated from the mainstream of national life. They also exploited vast forest wealth and utilized forest regions for defense and security purposes. Post-1947 policy constitutional provisions. Following the attainment of independence, Free India framed an elaborate democratic constitution which applies to each and every citizen of the country. There are many provisions which acquire a special significance in the case of tribal and other backward classes in view of the hardships. Besides, there are many clauses in the constitution which apply only to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. The preamble of the Constitution of India guarantees to all citizens of India social, economic, political justice, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, and equality of status and opportunity, and seeks to promote fraternity among the Indians in order to assure the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. Part 3 of the Constitution deals with fundamental rights and assures to all the citizens of India that no discrimination will be permitted on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth included in Article 15. This acquires significance because the tribal people have been in the past discriminated against on grounds of religion, race and place of birth. The depressed castes have been depressed because of their affiliation. Part 4, Article 46 lays down that the state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interests of the weaker sections of the people, and in particular of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. Part 6, Article 164 provides for a Ministry of Tribal Welfare in each of the states of Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Orissa. Part 10, Article 244 provides for the inclusion of a fifth schedule in Constitution incorporating provisions for the administration of scheduled areas and tribes of the various states other than those in the state of Assam. For Assam tribes, the sixth schedule carries administrative provisions. Part 12, Article 275 provides for the grant of special funds by the Union government to the state governments for promoting the welfare of scheduled tribes and for providing them with a better administration. Part 15, Article 325 lays down that nobody will be denied the right to vote on grounds of religion, race, caste or sex. Part 16, Article 330 and Article 332 reserve seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Article 335 assures that scheduled castes and tribes will be given special attention while filling in posts in the services. Article 338 provides for a special officer for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to be appointed by the President. Article 339 requires the President to call for a report on the special administration of scheduled areas and the welfare of scheduled tribes 10 years after the commencement of the Constitution. He may do so before the expiry of the 10-year period also. Besides, the Union Executive has the power to give instructions to the states on the administration of the scheduled tribes. The Article 340 empowers the President to appoint a commission to investigate the conditions of backward classes in general and suggest ameliorative measures. Article 342 empowers the President after consultation with the Governor of a state to specify the scheduled tribes of that state from among its tribal communities. The fifth schedule attached to Article 244 requires a governor to submit reports to the President. The schedule also provides for the appointment of tribes advisory councils of not more than 20 members, of whom 3/4 or as nearly as may be shall be the representatives of scheduled tribes in the legislative assembly of the state. The governor can modify the general laws or restrict their application when applied to the tribes. He may make regulations for the peace and good government of a scheduled area in his state. These may refer to the prevention of land alienation, land allotment and control of activities of businessmen and money lenders. No regulation shall be made unless the tribe's advisory council is consulted. Obviously, their advice is not constitutionally binding. Articles 244 clause 2 and Article 275 clause 1 provides for the administration of tribal areas in Assam through the creation of autonomous districts and autonomous regions with district councils and regional councils respectively. Let us now discuss about the role of 5-year plans. The various 5-year plans have contributed in the development of the tribal communities. The first 5-year plan between 1951 to 56 emphasized on community development programs. During the second 5-year plan between 1956 to 61, top priority was given to the promotion of education, followed by communication, agriculture, animal husbandry and medical facilities. 43 special multi-purpose tribal blocks were established in areas with tribal concentration. The third 5-year plan between 1961 to 1966 provided for integrated development benefits to all the tribal areas through 489 tribal development blocks opened by the end of 1967 on the basis of the recommendations made by Elvin Committee and Debar Commission. Economic upliftment was given top priority, followed by education and health, housing and communication. The fourth 5-year plan between 1969 to 1974 emphasized on area and regional approach. 6 pilot projects in the backward tribal areas covering about 40,000 tribal families were introduced. Agriculture orientation with stress on improved agricultural inputs like implements, fertilizers, seeds, irrigation facilities, etc. was significant during this plan. Besides, developing veterinary services, fisheries, etc. also received attention. The fifth 5-year plan between 1974 to 1978 was based on integrated area development approach. This period was broadly divided into 2 parts. Firstly, development of tribals living in areas of their concentration, and secondly, development of dispersed tribal population. Tribal sub-plan were also launched during this plan. The sixth 5-year plan between 1980 to 1985 emphasized on the consolidation of protective measures, programs of employment, education and health services. The seventh 5-year plan between 1985 to 1990 saw substantial increase in the flow of funds for the development, expansion of infrastructural facilities and enlargement of coverage. The educational development of scheduled tribes, setting up Tribal Cooperative Marketing Development Federation (TriFed) in 1987 as an apex body for state tribal development cooperative corporations, provision of remunerative prices for the forest and agricultural produce, setting up National Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Finance and Development Corporation in 1989, and credit support for employment generation were significant aspects during 7th plan. The 8th 5-year plan between 1992 to 97 focused on elimination of exploitation, addressing suppression of rights, land alienation, non-payment of minimum wages and restrictions on right to collect minor forest produce, etc. The 9th 5-year plan realized the need for national policy for tribal development. The 10th 5-year plan focused on the eradication of deprivation or exploitation of tribes as the center point in its approach, empowering scheduled tribes through a 3-pronged strategy of social empowerment, economic empowerment and social justice. The 11th 5-year plan witnessed paradigm shift with focus on issues related to governance at the center, tribal centric, tribal participative and tribal managed development process. The 12th 5-year plan emphasized on reorganizing basic services such as nutritional interventions, education, health services, public distribution system, employment generating activities under Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005 or popularly known as NREGA. Livelihood support, better coverage of roadways for tribal areas with population of 500 to 1000, better and speedy implementation of provisions of the Panchayats Extension to Scheduled Areas Act PISA 1996 and the Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act popularly known as FRA 2006, institutional mechanism of conflict resolutions, better connectivity through railways in tribal areas. Land acquisition of tribal land to be addressed as required under PISA, and displaced tribal population should be resettled and rehabilitated. The tribal community should have full right to minor forest produce, land and tenancy reforms, and increased coverage of the most vulnerable within the scheduled tribes in the health sector. Apart from the various constitutional provisions and 5-year plans, several tribal development programs have been implemented for the tribal welfare. Let us discuss some of these measures. Tribal development programs. Special central assistance to states and union territories to be provided meant for family-oriented income generating schemes in the sectors of agriculture, horticulture, minor irrigation, soil conservation, animal husbandry, forests, educative, cooperative fisheries, village and small scale industries, and for minimum needs program. The 20-point program for tribal families was initiated across the poverty line. Ashrama schools were established for providing basic education and vocational training in areas such as agriculture, forestry, animal husbandry, poultry, farming, beekeeping and handicrafts. LAMPs, that is, large size multi-purpose cooperative societies, were established in tribal areas for giving productive and unproductive loans. Through these societies, the tribals are supplied with improved seeds, modern agricultural equipments, chemicals and fertilizers, pesticides, etc. The vocational training in tribal areas was introduced in 1992-93 to develop the skills of the tribal youth in order to gain employment, self-employment opportunities. The provisions of the Panchayat's Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996 PISA, enacted on 24 December 1996, aimed to extend the provisions of Part 9 of the Constitution to the scheduled areas with certain exceptions and modifications. The goal of PISA was to implement a system of self-governance in the scheduled areas identified by the 5th schedule of the Constitution. The Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006, enacted on 18 December 2006, is also called the Forest Rights Act, the Tribal Rights Act, the Tribal Bill and the Tribal Land Act. The law concerns the rights of the forest dwelling communities to land and other resources denied to them over decades as a result of the continuance of colonial forest laws in India. Another significant tribal development policy is District Mineral Foundations (DMFs) and Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana, which was launched by Government of India to benefit tribals by the mineral wealth in their regions and empower the tribal community to improve their standards of living. The DMFs set up in all districts in the country is affected by mining related operations through the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Act 2015. Tribals have cultural and physical diversities. Thus, no single plan or project could be deemed as all comprehensive or all inclusive. Most of these projects and schemes never took into account the felt needs of the people. The major portion of the money allotted for development program has been spent on the establishment of the plans and projects. Tribal communities in India are highly diversified in nature and are geographically distributed in different zones. Tribal communities encounter several challenges owing to their typical characteristics. tribal development has passed through several stages and has accelerated in post-independent India owing to various constitutional provisions, 5-year plans and tribal development policies.